At a standard level, the I Ching gates themselves are initiative pathways to something of a tempered superpower. Tempered superpower, meaning seeing the gift of anything being a superpower. And upon that energetic pathway, there's some sort of energetic governing filtration systems that temper it and manage it behind the external psychological approach in how that is managed. So on the most basic level, we're operating from our birth as we grow into life, and as we're growing into life, certain gifts and talents within us are being enhanced. But as we're born, we're starting from a neutral energetic level, that of leaning towards body unconsciousness, the body being unconscious to what it is in within the quote unquote infinite layers of whatever we're in and how we're traveling, which is the same as transformation. And how that's ultimately being, grounded as far as the speculation, how from a bottom up material level, how the solar system firmware and the planetary firmware is adapting and accounting and documenting just that from that level. But on a standard level, we're operating from a body unconscious level with inherent potentiality and gifts. And those gifts could be equated to something like the I Ching gates. And the I Ching gates, from how there's a particular organization of how the I Ching gates have a correlation with, the higher octave astrology, the higher octave Vedantic principles, and Sanatana Dharma in a neutral lens. And same with the whole and the higher octave neutral lens of the Kabbalah, because there's levels, and there's purification to these systems. We just don't know it because it's all coming from God. But as it came from God, how has it uniquely separated itself to create its own individuated denomination within a certain quadrant parsec of, time and space darkness? So on the most standard level, the I Ching gates are the talents and the gifts. And on an unconscious level, we're tempering, transiting, and being initiated into our own gifts and talents, perhaps, because the I Ching gates, we all have all of those, we're all being initiated constantly. There's an initiation going on an energetic level. It doesn't have to necessarily be heady, but it could be, because that's part of, what it really constitutes to be a human with, unknown gifts. A human with unknown gifts is new heights gradually for capacities to manage your mind, body, and soul on a higher octave level, already being accounted on, and like, whatever, before all the pre-influence too, respectively. So we could ask, like, where is this place where like the I Ching gates correlate and have a parallel correspondence to the higher octave astrology? That's a different mystery, but the mysteries are being debunked and deciphered. So what really increases our probability and enhances our probability within really most advancedly developing whatever you're calling psychic abilities, gifts, and talents, what really constitutes the better enhancement of it is properly shifting how we're coming from a place of body unconsciousness, and how we're transitioning to a place of like the different contexts of super consciousness, respectively, within its own graduality, because super consciousness expresses itself differently between the mind, body, and the emotional soul complex, or does it not? So as it does that, we're all supremely unique in how, let's check the battery. Yep, battery's good. Shit. But we're all supremely unique in how we're either highlighting and exalting the probability. How are we highlighting and exalting the enhancement probability of how we could, on a spiritual liberative like level, how could we keep our gifts? Because even though the human body, we all have similar default similarity gifts, the I Ching gates. The I Ching gates on an unknown level to renown level, they are the gifts and the talents and the abilities and skills themselves in their own unique form within, and they operate in different ways, based on how we are, what we are, and when we are. And the gates aren't just like, it doesn't necessarily have to be just like metaphysical. It could be mental, it could be and it could be, material physical, like casually, respectively. The difference between metaphysical and material physical is, the productive physicality that is lesser density, and the productive physicality that is more density on an exalted level. So the gates are expressing themselves in different ways. This is the essence of the talents, abilities, and gifts, is like seeing from our unconscious body level how we already are with this, in this being, moving with these I Ching gates. And as we're like, coming with our own synergy alchemy, the alchemy configuration chemistry of all the different energies moving within you from your deepest soul, it's inflating the I Ching gates based on everything that you are, everything that you're responding to in harmony or not. It's inflating and watering and flowering and flourishing the potentiality of the I Ching gates within themselves, which on an unknown level to known level, those are on a different level. They are the dialed in foundational level to what everything our cognition has to do with is based on that code. We're just barely coming to understand it. So as we're barely coming to understand this new code, and as our synergy alchemy is, and I explained, I came up with synergy alchemy in like 2017, and I got the receipts for that, but that's not necessarily the point. The point is saying, and I'm like a super neutral person. I'm not dogmatic at all. I'm not really into the dogmatic thing these days, because it's just a quarrel that's not necessarily like necessary for the long-term future. So if you can't read in between the lines, then then you're resonating on a disharmonic way, and to some subtle nuance of a subtle percentage of mental wise, reality wise, and spiritual emotional wise, or spiritual non-emotional wise. So from the body unconscious level to the new conscious level, these I Ching gates, they are they also are like, they they're an ongoing tribulation, and the ongoing tribulation within the different complex array of how something could be amplified in a unique way, planets or something beyond planets. Certain, keynotes within the field, within the quadrant of this solar system field, the I Ching gates are expressing themselves differently, not just in the individual, not just in the tribal area, but in the collective area and beyond the collective area. So the I Ching gates, you could ask like, where is where is um where is the beyond place, where that's ultimately being foundated, perhaps, if that's your thing, but from a body unconscious level, in this now moment, in this present moment, for better or for worse, from our misunderstanding to our new recomprehension, the transits and the aspects that are happening, They're giving us a possible harmonic leverage in how we could equalize, ground, and clear the detriments of the shadows of the I Ching gates, because anything that has a broadcasted projection, it casts some sort of shadow, and within that shadow, anything could happen within the shadow, as anything could happen within the light. That's the nature of the chaos. That's the nature of life and death. And within that, everything is just a probability of potentiality. And within that probability of potentiality, there's a chance where we could realize, and beyond the realization, we could engage and interact with our the essence of our DNA code, the 64 I Ching hexagram gates, which could be individuated from any system, or it could be included in any system. It doesn't, like, you know what I'm saying. And within that, in this present now moment, the tribulation is, it keeps on going. The tribulation is still here, and within the tribulation, we could, the secret gift is having the hyper flexibility, where the body's unconsciousness could go to the exalted, enhanced, mental awareness in whatever graduality, aspect angle it can. It could focus on how our inner DNA, and that's just beyond the word, how our inner DNA is being enhanced based on the transits and the aspects, because the aspects and the transits in the sky, they're activating subtly or not so subtly based on your own inner harmony. The 64 I Ching hexagram gates within you, and the 64 I Ching hexagram gates within you, all of it, every human has it at a default level. But the ultimate trick is like, how are you actually, like, preparing for that to be sustained long term? And it is by, on an unbeknownst level, it is by collective harmony, tribal harmony, and individual harmony. That's like the main three. And if you're not for that main three, then on a higher octave, subtle neutral level, then you're just kind of like, defeating yourself. But this is high esoteric, principles. This is like supreme mathematics on a different level, because it, like, everything that you do, it's being accounted for. Are you doing it to sustain yourself or not? That's like it's like the best simplicity ever. So as we're realizing the ongoing activations, and we have the mental insight to know what's going on a subtle level, then that's the only chance we get to actually harmonize with all the, the nuanced, unbeknownst chaos that there is, and the nuanced, unbeknownst harmony that there is. Because to try to solve something, and to know something, or to try to solve a problem, we have to know, like, what's underneath the problem, and what is like the pre-solution for the problem. That's the only way to, like, really, supremely solve the problem, is you have to know, like, what are the integers and factors before the problem was even a split duality phenomena of whatever it divided itself ultimately from whatever higher esoteric circumstance or situation that it came from, and how did it settle to become its own codex of a quote unquote DNA code, I Ching hexagram, that has been instilled within the physiological, metaphysical body template of every human, but within the transits of the shadows of all of that and the light of all that, the potentiality and the probability is, it's at a diminish. It's fading. It's fading, because we're not necessarily knowing all the 64 gates. We're always in transit with them, regardless of the aspects and transits, because we're all expressing that in our own micro way, and we're all, like, influencing all the gates within ourselves, and all the transits and the aspects and the angles within ourselves. Regardless of what's happening in the sky, we're doing that on a micro level. And as we're doing that on a micro level, we're on a subtle, tempered, filtered level, gradually activating each other's DNA in within the probability of long-term, you know um spiritual preservability, spiritual sustainability, energetic sustainability, like, for your soul. So with it, so because like, for example, like, you know certain, like, epiphany like gifts, come from certain themes of life, and the themes of life like conflict, the themes of life like abysmality, the deep within the deep, all those, they're themes that we're barely mentally, physically, spiritually being reinitiated into. But on a body unconsciousness, we don't know that. And since we don't know that, it takes a certain mental insight to align with that. A big mental insight, a big casual, effortless effort. And within that effortless effort, as we're shifting and pivoting towards a new realization of how the 64 I Ching hexagram gates are within us, we're having a chance to equalize that, But the particular tribulation of the I Ching gate, it could be enhanced by the transits and the aspects itself. So conflict is always going to be a thing, And conflict is going to be enhanced and provoked in so many different ways. But if you are handling conflict in a unique inner harmony, unique inner synergy alchemy way, then you could pivot and leverage and transmute the conflict within yourself in whatever circumstance, individual, tribal, or collective, based on how you have tempered with it and realized it, and and hunched into your inner intuition on how you could actually deal with the ongoing tribulation, regardless of its enhancement or settling. And the enhancement or settling, it's always going to be there, but it doesn't have to be how we're projecting and painting it to be. It's always going to be there, but how are we specifically transforming that gate? Conflict is always going to be there. And on another side note, it's like, so all these I Ching gates with all the many different themes and combinations that it could express as a new theme, that is the cruxes of our inner DNA onical template. And within that, it's like today is the last day of Leo season, Mars day on last day Leo season. So we're like having passionate, quote unquote, unconscious, animalistic, end quote, drives on an unconscious level to actually conclude, what has been given to us on a deep metaphysical productive level, the sun lighting up everything, flourishing everything, and somehow on a certain, filter that has been gauged for better or for worse, So we're concluding Leo season on a Mars day. So we're being passionate about our own, of how we're being passionate of how we could look to society. We're being passionate of how we could deal with society. We're being passionate about our inner truth. And just because I'm putting it in this context, that doesn't necessarily have to always be good and harmonic. No, it could be straight up distorted and twisted. So that's the higher reality. But the main ultimate goal of it is to equalize all of that, because without the equalization, then you're not on the track for ongoing harmonic pleasure and bliss, because ongoing harmonic pleasure and bliss is less void of detriment, chaos, and detriment distortion, period. So the gifts themselves, the superpowers themselves are tempered and they're gauged. But if we know what the superpowers are, the superpowers, the I Ching hexagram gates, they have their own ladder spectrum, or spectrum ladder, of how they express themselves and how they're expressing themselves, restarting as a human from 0 years old to regardless of wherever you're at. All the time that you have been given is the time that you have, had in this life per your past dharma and karma, beyond the words and the identifications of that, is, what have you done to really cultivate your gifts within this life? And what distractions have you had to void your own cultivation of those gifts and talents in this life? Because the gifts and talents are ongoing, and the gifts and talents could be more enhanced by bringing it to our new mental awareness. And the new mental awareness is seeing how, pretty much on the bigger picture level, what's not for it and what's for it, what's really fake on a synergy alchemical level, and what's really supremely real on a synergy alchemical level. Synergy alchemy meaning taking into account all the different energies on an unknown to known level of what's for us, what sustains us. You are the gift. Possibly. You are the talent and the miracle in probability. Have an awesome life.